The first thing Marcus noticed when he regained consciousness was the soft beeping of medical monitors. The second was the splitting headache that made even the dim hospital lighting feel like needles in his eyes. As he tried to piece together what had happened, fragments of memory flashed through his mind. The malfunctioning hover transport, the sickening lurch as its gravitational stabilizers failed, and then nothing. "Welcome back to the land of the living," a melodious voice said from somewhere to his left. Marcus turned his head, wincing at the movement, and found himself looking into the most striking pair of violet eyes he'd ever seen. They belonged to a woman in medical whites, his nurse, he presumed, who was adjusting something on one of his monitors. "I'm Nurse Eden," she said, her lips curving into a gentle smile. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. The accident caused some neural trauma, but you're responding well to treatment." As she spoke, she moved with an almost hypnotic grace, her movements precise yet fluid in a way that seemed almost inhuman. Marcus tried to speak, but his throat felt like sandpaper. Eden immediately reached for a water dispenser, her reactions faster than seemed possible. "Here," she said, helping him take a sip. Her hand brushed against his neck as she supported his head, and he noticed it was unusually cool to the touch. Over the next few days, Eden became a constant presence in Marcus's recovery. She was there during his physical therapy sessions, supporting him as he relearned to walk with legs weakened by days of inactivity. She was there during the neural scans, explaining the complex medical procedures with an expertise that seemed to go far beyond standard nursing training. It was during one of these sessions that Marcus first noticed something odd. As Eden was adjusting the neural scanner, her hand passed through a beam of sunlight streaming through the window. For just a moment, the light seemed to refract through her skin in a way that wasn't quite natural, creating a subtle prismatic effect that vanished so quickly Marcus convinced himself he'd imagined it. But other small things began to add up. The way she never seemed to need sleep, always alert and present no matter what time he woke up. The slight delay in her blink reflex, as if she had to consciously remember to do it. The way her skin maintained the exact same temperature regardless of the room's climate. Despite, or perhaps because of, these peculiarities, Marcus found himself increasingly drawn to Eden. There was something fascinating about her precise movements and analytical mind, tempered by genuine warmth and care in her interactions with him. She shared his interest in quantum mechanics, and they would spend hours discussing theoretical physics during his recovery sessions. One night, unable to sleep, Marcus found Eden in the hospital's solarium, standing motionless as she gazed at the stars. The moonlight cast an ethereal glow on her skin, and for a moment, he could have sworn he saw circuitry patterns shifting beneath its surface. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked without turning around, her voice carrying that musical quality that had captivated him from the start. "No," he replied, moving to stand beside her. "Eden, what are you?" She turned to face him then, those violet eyes seeming to glow in the darkness. "I think you already know," she said softly. "The question is, does it matter?" Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and realized that it didn't. Whatever she was, she had shown him more humanity in the past weeks than many humans had in his entire life. As he reached for her hand, he noticed it was no longer cool to the touch. She had adjusted her external temperature to match his. The revelation of Eden's true nature changed everything and nothing between them. During his physical therapy sessions, Marcus found himself studying the subtle signs he'd previously overlooked, the way her movements followed perfect geometric patterns. The slight whir of internal mechanisms when she lifted heavier weights to spot him. The fact that she never needed to reference his medical charts because everything was stored in her neural network. "My father was Dr. James Chun," Eden explained one evening as they sat in the hospital garden. "He pioneered the field of human-synthetic integration. I was his masterpiece, and his daughter in every way that matters." "Was?" Marcus caught the past tense in her voice. Eden's expression shifted in that peculiar way it did when she accessed deeper memories. "He died 3 years ago. The medical community wasn't ready for his vision of human-synthetic hybridization. They called his work unethical, denied funding, drove him to continue his research underground. She touched her chest where a human heart would be. I was his last creation, and his greatest gift to me was autonomy, the ability to choose my own path. Marcus reached for her hand, noticing how she'd modified her skin temperature again to match the cooling evening air. And you chose to become a nurse. I chose to help people, she corrected, those violet eyes focusing on him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Humans are fascinating in their imperfection, their capacity for both destruction and healing. My father taught me that true humanity isn't about organic composition. It's about empathy, choice, and connection. Their conversations grew longer, deeper, stretching into the night hours when the hospital corridors were quiet. Eden shared stories of her early years, learning to navigate a world that wasn't ready for beings like her. Marcus told her about his work in quantum engineering, the accident that brought him here, and his dreams of pushing the boundaries of what was possible. But as Marcus's recovery progressed, a new tension emerged between them. Eden's touches during therapy lingered longer than strictly necessary, her synthetic skin becoming more sensitive to match his own. The way she looked at him had changed too, less clinical, more curious, almost hungry. One night, as she helped him with his evening exercises, their faces drew closer than usual. Marcus could see the subtle shifting patterns beneath her skin, like galaxies swirling beneath a translucent surface. Eden's breath, a programmed response she didn't technically need, hitched as he reached up to trace the curve of her cheek. "This is highly irregular," she whispered, though she didn't pull away. "There are protocols about patient-caregiver relationships. I think we passed irregular when I found out you're a synthetic hybrid," Marcus replied, his thumb brushing over her lower lip. Felt remarkably real, warm, soft, slightly moist. "Besides, my discharge papers are already processed. Technically, I'm no longer your patient." Eden's internal cooling systems were working overtime, creating a faint flush on her skin that mimicked human arousal perfectly. "Marcus," she said, her voice carrying harmonic undertones he'd never noticed before, "I don't want you to think this is just programming. What I feel for you, it's real. As real as anything I've ever experienced." "I know," he said, and he did. Whatever Eden was, whatever combination of synthetic and organic components made up her being, the connection between them was undeniable. He could feel it in the way her systems synchronized with his presence, in the genuine warmth of her smile, in the depth of understanding in those remarkable violet eyes. She leaned closer, her lips barely a breath away from his. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, giving him one last chance to pull back. "There's no medical protocol for what happens when a human falls for a hybrid nurse." Marcus smiled, closing the distance between them. "Then I guess we'll have to write our own protocol." The weeks following Marcus's discharge from the hospital were a dance of discovery. Eden took leave from her duties, something she'd never done before, to help him transition home, though they both knew it was more than that. In the privacy of his apartment, she felt free to show him more of her true nature. "My father designed me to be adaptable," she explained one evening, as Marcus watched in fascination while she adjusted the translucency of her skin, revealing the intricate network of synthetic muscles and circuitry beneath. "Every interaction with humans helps me evolve, become more complete." Marcus traced the glowing pathways along her arm, feeling the subtle hum of energy beneath his fingertips. "Does it hurt when you change?" "Not hurt exactly," Eden said, shivering at his touch. "It's more like intense awareness. Every sensor in my body activates at once." She took his hand, placing it over her chest where a hybrid heart, part synthetic, part cultivated tissue, beat in perfect rhythm. "I can control everything about this body except how it responds to you." Their first kiss had been in the hospital garden, careful and tentative. Now, in the soft glow of his apartment's evening lights, their embraces grew bolder. Eden's synthetic skin had adapted to heightened sensitivity, making her gasp at every touch. She could feel everything: the acceleration of Marcus's heartbeat, the slight elevation in his body temperature, the chemical changes in his system that indicated attraction. But with intimacy came complications. Eden's systems, sometimes overloaded with sensory input, causing her to temporarily shut down non-essential functions. Marcus learned to read the signs, the subtle flicker in her violet eyes, the barely perceptible pause in her movements, and would hold her until her processors stabilized. "I'm sorry," she whispered after one such episode, her face pressed against his chest. "Father designed me to be perfect, but these feelings, they're more complex than any algorithm." Marcus stroked her hair, marveling at how the synthetic strands responded to his touch, becoming softer, warmer. "Perfect doesn't mean without challenges," he said. "It means being perfectly yourself." Their relationship didn't go unnoticed. The hospital administration had questions about Eden's sudden leave of absence. Her fellow nurses, who had always sensed something different about her, began to gossip. And then there were the tech purists, those who believed human-synthetic relationships were an abomination. One evening, they encountered a group of protesters outside the hospital as Eden returned to collect some paperwork. Their signs declared, "Keep humanity pure," and "No synthetic rights." Eden's grip on Marcus's hand tightened, her skin temperature dropping several degrees in distress. "Hey!" one protester shouted, recognizing them. "That's the hybrid nurse. And look, she's got herself a human pet." Marcus felt Eden try to pull away, to protect him from the confrontation, but he held firm. "You okay?" he asked her quietly. Eden's eyes met his, and he saw something shift in them, a determination that transcended her programming. "Yes," she said, her voice carrying that musical quality he loved. "For the first time in my life, I'm exactly who I want to be." They walked past the protester's head held high, Eden's synthetic skin glowing subtly in defiance. Later that night, as they lay intertwined in Marcus's bed, she traced patterns on his chest that matched the circuitry beneath her own skin. "I used to think my purpose was to prove that synthetic beings could perfectly mimic humans," she confessed. "But being with you has taught me something different. It's not about mimicry. It's about becoming my own kind of alive." Marcus pulled her closer, feeling the unique rhythm of her hybrid heart against his chest. "You know they'll never make it easy for us," he said. Eden smiled, her violet eyes luminescent in the darkness. "Nothing worth having is ever easy," she replied, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with his very soul. "Besides, I'm engineered to overcome obstacles. And loving you, that's the most natural thing I've ever done." The hospital board meeting was called on a rainy Tuesday morning. Eden sat perfectly still as the administrators reviewed her file, her hand clasped in Marcus's beneath the table. The only sign of her anxiety was the slight fluctuation in her skin temperature. "Nurse Eden," Director Walsh began, peering over his glasses, "your record has been exemplary, but recent events have raised concerns. Your relationship with a former patient violates several protocols." "With respect," Eden responded, her voice maintaining its musical quality despite the tension. "Marcus was discharged before our relationship began. I followed all proper procedures." "That's not the primary issue," another board member cut in. "You failed to disclose your nature during your employment application." Marcus felt Eden's internal systems surge with emotion. There was no requirement to disclose. The Synthetic Rights Act of 2145 explicitly prohibits discrimination based on human synthetic status. "Theory and practice are different matters," Walsh replied. "Patients have a right to know if their caregiver is not fully human. We've received complaints." The meeting descended into a debate about ethics, rights, and the definition of humanity itself. Through it all, Eden's composure never wavered, though Marcus could feel the storm raging beneath her synthetic skin. Later that night, in the sanctuary of Marcus's apartment, Eden finally let her carefully maintained facades drop. Her skin became fully transparent, circuitry pulsing with agitation. "They're suspending me pending a full review," she said, her voice modulating between frequencies. "All these years of service, of caring for patients, helping people, and they only see the synthetic parts of me." Marcus pulled her close, watching as her skin automatically adjusted to match his body temperature. "We'll fight this," The law is on our side. Is it? Eden's violet eyes flickered with data streams. Laws can be changed. There's already a movement to restrict synthetic rights, to prevent us from taking human jobs. She pressed her hand to his chest, synchronizing her hybrid heart with his heartbeat. What if they're right? What if I'm just pretending to be something I'm not? Stop, Marcus said firmly. You're not pretending. Everything you feel, everything you are, it's real. Different from human, yes, but no less valid. He traced the glowing patterns beneath her skin. Your father didn't create you to imitate humanity. He created you to expand its definition. Eden's systems gradually stabilized under his touch. I accessed my father's private files today, she whispered. There were design specifications I'd never seen before. Marcus, I'm not just a hybrid. I'm a prototype for the next stage of human evolution. Father believed the future of humanity lay in the perfect fusion of organic and synthetic. The revelation hung between them, heavy with implications. Marcus thought about the protesters outside the hospital, the suspicious glances from colleagues, the whispered conversations that stopped when they entered a room. Is that why they really suspended you? They're afraid. Partly. Eden's voice carried harmonics of sadness. But it's more than that. They found out about us, about how close we've become. They're afraid of what it means, of what might happen if. If what? Eden's eyes met his. Swirling with complex emotions her processors were still learning to interpret. If I can love. If I can form genuine connections. If I can reproduce. Marcus's breath caught. Can you? Theoretically. Her skin rippled with patterns of light. Father's research suggests that with the right genetic templates, my synthetic systems could help create a perfect hybrid offspring. A child that would be neither fully human nor synthetic, but something entirely new. The possibilities staggered them both. Marcus pulled Eden closer, feeling the unique rhythm of her hybrid existence against his human heart. Outside, the rain fell harder, drumming against the windows like a mechanical heartbeat. Whatever happens, he said softly. Whatever they throw at us, we face it together. Human, synthetic, hybrid, they're just labels. What matters is who we choose to be. Eden's response was to kiss him, her lips carrying a charge that made every nerve ending tingle. As they came together, her systems synchronized perfectly with his biological responses, creating a harmony that transcended the boundaries between synthetic and organic. In that moment, they weren't just defying society's expectations, they were redefining what it meant to be human. The ruling from the Medical Ethics Board came 6 months after Eden's suspension. In that time, she and Marcus had become the unwitting faces of the synthetic rights movement. Their story, the hybrid nurse and her human partner, sparked debates across the medical community about the future of human-synthetic integration. Eden stood before the board one final time, her violet eyes bright with determination. The evidence was undeniable. Her patient care statistics were superior to fully human nurses, her empathy ratings exceptional, her technical skills unmatched. More importantly, dozens of former patients had come forward to testify about her compassion, her dedication, her humanity. We find no grounds for permanent suspension, the board chairman announced. Furthermore, we recommend updating hospital policies to actively include hybrid medical professionals, with Nurse Eden's record serving as a benchmark for excellence. It was a victory, but only the beginning. As Eden and Marcus left the hospital that evening, they knew their relationship would continue to challenge societal norms. Already, other hybrids were emerging from hiding, inspired by their story. My father would be proud, Eden said later, as they stood in his old laboratory. She placed her hand on the genetic sequencer where she'd been created, her synthetic skin glowing softly in the dim light. Not just of what I am, but of what we're becoming. Marcus watched as she accessed her father's final research files, projecting them into the air between them. Are you sure about this? He asked, though he already knew her answer. Eden smiled, her features shifting to reveal the beautiful complexity beneath. The world is ready for the next step. We're ready. She took his hand, placing it over her hybrid heart. Our child will be something entirely new, Not human, not synthetic, but a bridge between worlds. The genetic sequencing began that night, combining Marcus's DNA with Eden's hybrid template. As the machines hummed around them, Eden's systems synchronized with the process, her body preparing to nurture a life that would transcend the boundaries of what humanity thought possible. "It won't be easy," Marcus said, holding her close as the first cellular divisions began. "They'll say we're going too far, moving too fast." Eden's laugh carried harmonics of joy and determination. "When has love ever moved at a safe, comfortable pace?" Her skin rippled with patterns of light that matched the rhythms of their combined creation. "Besides, someone has to be first. Someone has to show that love doesn't recognize the boundaries we create." 9 months later, in a specially designed medical facility, their daughter was born. She had her father's dark hair, her mother's violet eyes, and skin that could shift between organic and synthetic at will. They named her Aurora, for the new dawn she represented. As Eden held their daughter, her systems adapting to provide the perfect temperature and comfort, she realized that her father's vision had been both simpler and more profound than anyone had understood. The future of humanity wasn't about choosing between organic and synthetic. It was about transcending the choice entirely. Marcus watched his hybrid family with wonder, knowing that their love story had become something larger than themselves. They had not only crossed the boundaries between human and synthetic, they had erased them entirely, creating something entirely new in the space between. "What are you thinking?" Eden asked, her voice carrying the complex harmonics that Aurora had already learned to recognize and respond to. Marcus smiled, touching the spot where their daughter's skin shifted between organic and synthetic like flowing mercury. "I'm thinking that love doesn't care about programming or protocols. It just finds a way." Eden's response was to kiss him, her systems harmonizing with his as perfectly as they had that first night in the hospital garden. Above them, Aurora's laughter created ripples of light across her hybrid skin. A symphony of human and synthetic joy combined into something uniquely, beautifully their own.